Today, I'm going to share one very quick little thing that you can do that may just be the ticket to helping drive more sales into your business. It might take you about 10 minutes of time, and it has to do with the call to action button on your website. Are you ready to find out what it is? Let's get started. Hey there, this is Corinna Bench, and welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast. In today's market, it's not enough to just grow your product. You've got to know how to sell it too. Welcome to the My Digital Farmer podcast, where we reveal online marketing strategies and tips to help farmers like you get better and more confident at marketing. Learn how to find more customers, increase your sales, and build a strong brand for your farm. Let's start the show. Well, welcome to episode 230 of the My Digital Farmer podcast. I'm your host, Corinna Bench, one of the farmers at Shared Legacy Farms out in Elmore, Ohio. I'm also the founder of mydigitalfarmer.com, which is all about trying to help other farmers get more confident in their marketing and sales strategy so that you can build your marketing machine and grow a profitable business. How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to the show. Big shout out to all of my regular subscribers. If you're new to the podcast, thanks for checking me out today. Make sure you subscribe to the show and go listen to my first 10 episodes, especially if you're kind of green when it comes to marketing. I designed them long ago to be an onboarding ramp into the marketing lingo. Now, if you're also looking for some help in general guidance, like how do I learn the foundations of marketing for a farm business, please get onto my email list because that is the best way to get a crash course in farm marketing. You can go to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. And when you do that, I'm going to send you a weekly email for like 3 months that's going to walk you through a curated selection of teachings and content and people you need to know and follow and core concepts so that by the end of that, you're going to have a really good foundation. So again, you can get that at mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Today's podcast is sponsored by my friends at Local Line. So what's the difference between a generic e-commerce platform and something like Local Line? Well, Local Line is built specifically for farmers. That means that Local Line has features that other e-commerce platforms don't have, like the ability to sell meat and other variable weighted products, custom delivery and pickup plans, inventory management by pack size, customer segmentation by price list, pre-configured pick and pack lists, low credit card processing rates, and more. In addition to all of these farmer-first features, Local Line recently launched a service that connects farms with buyers, including restaurants and grocery stores. And they're about to release a subscriptions product. Our family farm here at Shared Legacy Farms has used Local Line since 2020, and we love that Local Line is constantly improving their platform. I'm not kidding. Every few weeks, they either upgrade an existing feature or they add a totally new feature to the platform to make it better. And their customer service rocks. I just had an issue come up a few weeks ago. Their developers got on it and they solved the bug in 2 days. For podcast listeners, Local Line is now offering a free premium feature for 1 whole year when you sign up using my coupon code. Terms and conditions apply. So for more information, go to mydigitalfarmer.com/local line and then type in my coupon code MDF2023. I'll also put the link in the show notes. And now back to the show. I've got a quick tip for you today. I want you to put more call to action buttons on your website. Let's talk about this and why this is important. First of all, I want you to go look at your website right now, and I want you to do a quick audit and scan it. See how many call to action buttons are on the homepage of your website. Hopefully you have one in the top section in the header image, but do you have it again later on? And I want you to count the number of times you have a call to action button on the homepage. The reason this is coming up in its own podcast episode is because when I audit farmers' websites, I often see this problem where the call to action button only shows up maybe a couple of times on the whole page. And I feel like I need to make sure I tell you that you're missing an opportunity when you only limit your frequency of that CTA button like to once or twice or even 3 times. You should definitely have it in the top section. You should have it at the very bottom. And if possible, you should scatter it a couple times in the middle. So why is this important? Well, repetition is absolutely vital when it comes to sales and marketing. Customers need to hear the same message over and over again. Sometimes you might hear the statistic that people need to hear the same thing like 7 times before they take action. So we want it to be really clear when people come to your website what it is that you're all about and what you want them to do. So here's a few things that happen when you have this repetitive call to action button showing up more than twice on your homepage. First of all, it's going to create clarity for your customer prospect of what you want them to do. I was listening to a radio ad in the car a few days ago when I was picking up my son from aviation school. Actually, this ad has been coming on a lot the last few days. And here's what they do. It might be like 30 seconds long. They're talking pretty fast, but in the last 10 seconds, they repeat the call to action 6 times in a row. Have you ever heard one of those radio or TV ads where the person ends the ad with a repetitive message like, go to SeptemberCash33.com. That's SeptemberCash33.com. Go to SeptemberCash33.com. Okay, that was basically the end of the ad, except they did it 6 times. Granted, that was annoying, but the principle behind it was brilliant because they wanted to make sure that the listener remembered the website to go to. And so they're going to burn it into your brain and they're going to use that airtime to say it over and over and over again. This is basically what's going on when you're asking people to come to your website. We want to make sure that you have repeated that call to action, that same call to action, more than twice on your homepage so that it's absolutely clear to that person, this is what they want me to do as step 1. Now, maybe one of the reasons you don't have that in place is because you're not exactly sure what step 1 is in your business. Or you might be telling yourself, I have a lot of things that I want them to possibly do before they decide to work with me. And I'm going to push back a little bit and say, I want you to try to figure out what is the step 1. Like, nail down that first thing. I know you've got a lot of different ways that they can buy from you or support you, but what is the gateway into your business? And you should really try to narrow that down in your messaging if at all possible. Now, I have an option I'll talk about in a minute called the rabbit trail, which I totally use, but in general, we want to have the same call to action being spoken in this over and over on that website. Now, when we repeat that call to action, it also makes it more likely that the prospect will take the desired action. This is because decision fatigue is like a real thing. I was just in the store yesterday and I was shopping for balsamic vinegar glaze. So this isn't balsamic vinegar. This is like that syrupy stuff. People have been talking about it in my CSA Facebook group and I've never bought it before. I've had it and I've often wondered, where do you even get this? So I asked them, hey, where do you buy said balsamic vinegar glaze? And they told me that it's in the store. So I located it in the aisle. But there were 6 different brands of it. And I, having not ever bought this before, I felt a little overwhelmed. And I spent like 2 or 3 minutes pulling the different bottles down, reading the fine print, trying to make sure I wasn't accidentally buying balsamic vinegar, and trying to understand what's the difference between these. And I almost didn't buy one because there were just too many choices. Okay, this is something that happens to your customer when they come to your point of sale or to your website and they see multiple calls to action, there isn't the same thing over and over again, they're not exactly sure where they should begin. They're not sure which button should I start with. Or they get distracted by one of your very nice buttons that I'm sure has wonderful information behind it, but maybe it's going to take them off that main page down a different rabbit trail, and then they'll never come back and actually take the action that you want them to, right? So when we have that call to action over and over again, it's the same one, and it's not just at the top, but it's down at the bottom and it's several times in the middle because they might be scrolling your site. As they're learning more information about you, they keep running into that same call to action button, shop here or shop my bacon or whatever that first step is. Okay, so we don't want to offer people 4 or 5 different possible paths because their brain might go fuzzy, they might get confused, they might have that decision fatigue, and then they just click away from the point of sale. The other thing that I think goes on here is convenience. We're kind of lazy. Our brains are lazy. We want the point of easiest entry. And when, I don't know if this has ever happened to you where you've been scrolling a website and you've decided you want to get it, and then you've got to find the call to action button and you're trying to find it and it's not easy. You're scrolling up and down, you're looking for it, you're thumbing through it on your phone. We don't want to make people have to hunt for the call to action button. We want to have them spaced out all over the place so it's really easy to find. If you've got it way up at the top and they're way down at the bottom and they've got to go all the way back up, well, you may lose a few people who are just lazy and don't want to take that. Okay? Now, I want to make sure that I emphasize how important it is once you decide what that call to action is to use the same wording. I like to use an active verb as part of the language, the copywriting language, but you want to have it always be the same. And I sometimes am guilty of this. Like for a period of time, my call to action might be get on the wait list. And, sometimes I have found that one button says get on wait list. One of them says join the wait list, right? I'll have different words. Try to make it be consistent so that there's absolutely no confusion that this button is the same button as the one on top and the one on the bottom. It's all the same thing. And then I also think it's wise to have the same call to action color on the button and not switch that up. So you may have different brand colors. You might have 2 primary brand colors, but let's keep that call to action button the same color all the way down so that there's uniformity that way as well visually. And if you can try to use a call to action button that's a bright color, so not black or something or gray that's just going to fade into the rest of the page, it should pop. It should be the brand color that's your pop color. And that way it sticks out. And it's very obvious if somebody quickly scrolls through the whole page, like, oh, that bright yellow or bright red or bright orange or whatever, cranberry, that keeps showing up, and that's the thing that I'm supposed to press on. Have you ever wondered what is it that makes a person finally decide to start buying my products? Well, it turns out that a lot of it has to do with psychology, and psychology of sales is something you should definitely be studying if you want to be a good marketer. I have a free training called Why They Buy, where I review 6 of the most common psychological triggers that make someone ready to buy. These are not sleazy, they're not salesy, they're just kind of the facts of life that are based on psychology research. And when I learned them, it was so fascinating, and I discovered I was using some of these intuitively already, but when I learned what they were, it just gave me an appreciation for how I could be using them responsibly to help my clients make a decision. So if you'd like to learn what these psychology of sales triggers are, just head to mydigitalfarmer.com/why they buy. It's an on-demand class. You can watch it whenever you want. That's mydigitalfarmer.com/why they buy. I'll say it again for the sake of repetition. That's mydigitalfarmer.com/why they buy. And now back to the show. All right, so that is my big takeaway today, my big tip. I want you, here's kind of your next steps. I want you to go look at your website and just do a quick audit and see how many call to action buttons do you have and where are they, and look at the language. Are they all over the map? Do you have different types of things you're asking people to do? Now, look, I'm not saying don't have maybe a section in your website that's takes them off to the FAQ page. Like, yeah, you can do that. But you want to have like 70% of those buttons are the same call to action button, the primary call to action. So just go take a look, audit your site, and see if, number one, you've maybe got this issue going on. Then I want you to spend some time thinking about, what is my call to action? Because if you don't know that, then you got to spend some time parsing that out. Make a decision, come up with your little phrase, and place that in multiple places on your website. Add it to the different sections throughout the whole page. So I like to talk about how a website design is kind of like stacking pancakes on top of each other, right? So there are these horizontal elements that sit on top of each other. So you might have the header image that counts as one pancake. And then under that, you might have a problem section where you tease out the problem that you solve. And maybe under that is your first solution stack where you introduce who you are and it's a picture of the farmer and what you do. And then under that, it might be your testimonial banner where you've got different graphics like certified organic, pasture raised, or whatever, right? So there's different elements that sit on top of each other in a certain order. And in those elements, you have an opportunity to add a call to action button in some of them. That's what I'm talking about. Just go through and insert a little button, same color, same text, throw it around in multiple places and see if it doesn't create some clarity on that homepage. Now, I also want to give you a little quick tip here. This is a little bonus. Have a call to action button right underneath your testimonial bar. So important. So if you have a section, you should have a section where you've got customers sharing testimonials. Maybe you've got 3 testimonials in that block. Always put a call to action button in the testimonial section, because this is often the thing that your clients are looking for. They're looking for the social proof. They want to know it worked for someone else, and that's all they need to see. And suddenly their brain says, yep, you're good to go, permission granted, and they're ready to buy. So if they have to hunt around for a buy now button after the testimonials, that's not a good thing. You're missing an opportunity, okay? Now, I know some of you are asking, well, Corinna, how do I decide my one thing? Because I have multiple enterprises and I want to give them a chance to, choose between them. So this is a legitimate concern. And one of the things I want you to think about is, could you create like a fork in the road option on the website homepage? Like I call this the rabbit trail method, where you're offering people a chance to go down one of 2 rabbit trails, maybe 3, but I wouldn't offer more than 3 options. Again, because of that decision fatigue. So if a person comes to my website homepage, I sell vegetables in general, but I have 2 different ways that I offer them. I offer them in the a la carte store option, or I offer a CSA. And I give them the option on the homepage about halfway down when I start to talk about the solution, the different ways they can solve their quote unquote problem or get their desire. I have 2 different rabbit trails. So I'm like, shop the store, shop a la carte, or I have shop our CSA or join our CSA. I actually don't remember what the language is off the top of my head, but it's the same. So if you want to go look at my website, sharedlegacyfarms.com, just to see what I mean when I talk about the rabbit trail, you can do that. Once a person clicks, let's just say they click on the, I want to, join the CSA or want to learn more about the CSA, they get taken to my bona fide, full-blown sales page all about the CSA. And on that page, if you go look at that, you will see that there are tons of call to action buttons, and it's always the same thing. Join the CSA, or get a sampler box, depending on what time of year it is. Okay, so that is kind of one way around it. You could have an option where you allow them to split and make a decision at one point in your website. But I would argue that if you really want them to start with the a la carte store sales first, then I would argue that that's kind of what you're pushing in the other elements below. You have your suggested first step, your first doorway into your business, and that's the one that you would keep repeating on the rest of the page. Now, there may be people who differ and don't agree with that, or maybe that doesn't quite fit your business model, but this is something I want you to think about, maybe even test it and see if it doesn't help with your conversions. Maybe one of the reasons people aren't taking action on your website is because it's not clear what you want them to do and they're confused, or there are so many options that their brain explodes and they just say, well, I'll come back and look at this later. All right, just as a little aside, I have used this basic principle of putting the call to action in multiple places on the same marketing asset. I've used that in my emails as well with great success. I used to tell people, only put the call to action down near the bottom, right when you're signing off. Don't have it listed too many times, but I'm now switching what I'm saying. Like I have the same call to action somewhere near the top, somewhere in the middle, kind of near the sign off at the bottom. And then I sometimes even put it in the PS. And what I've noticed is that I have a higher click-through rate, significantly higher click-through rate for email when I give them the same link, like it's taking them to the same place, but when I scatter it throughout the page. And that makes sense because some people are not scrolling all the way down to the bottom of the email. Some of them are only scanning it or just reading the top section. So when I'm, putting it in multiple places, I'm going to increase the likelihood that those people will click on that link in the email somewhere. All right, there you have it. That is my tip for the day. Go take a look at your website. And I bet you could probably add at least one more call to action button. If you've only got one or two, add at least one more, maybe two more onto your homepage. And then while you're at it, go check all your other pages on your website and just add a call to action button on those too. All right, that's all I got today. Thanks for joining me. Today's show notes can be found at mydigitalfarmer.com/230. And if you liked today's episode, or if you are just enjoying this podcast and you are a binge listener, please share the show with someone. Would you tell a farmer about it? I want as many farmers as possible to get better at marketing because I think that's one of the main issues why we're not profitable. It's not the only one, but it's a big part of it. So share the show with someone else so they can start learning, or leave me a rating or a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. That would be fantastic. Don't forget, you can also get onto my email list if you want to get that sort of crash course in farm marketing. You can go to mydigitalfarmer.com/subscribe. Check me out on Instagram at mydigitalfarmer. And I am looking for podcast guests, especially as we enter into the winter months. If you have some time and you'd like to be on the show, I'd love to hear your story. Reach out to me at Corinna@mydigitalfarmer.com. That's Corinna. Have an awesome week, you guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.